Welcome to Extra Time, everybody. I'm your host, Greg Lawless, alongside Shep Messing and Jason, the producer. Act 1, running with the Bulls. It's been quite a week for the New York Red Bulls. They seem to have gored themselves, actually. Juan Carlos Osorio resigning his post as head coach. Richie Williams coming in as interim head coach. We've gotten lots of emails from people asking us, this is a team that actually looks okay on paper. Why were they not able to get it done?
I think a combination of factors, and certainly Juan Carlos Osorio has to be culpable. So it's almost like a breath of fresh air. You're dying. You're in the desert. You're dying of thirst, and you get a sip of water. But I think Eric Stover, their managing director for Red Bull, has said as much. It wasn't just Osorio. We were a little bit dysfunctional in terms of the scheme of things, the front office, the selection of players. So maybe a glimmer of hope for Red Bull.
Well, they recognized that it was a mess, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably organizational. I think they also got burned by a lot of injuries. Everyone said Juan Pablo Angel didn't look the same, although this weekend he came out and looked like the Juan Pablo Angel of 2007, 2008, which was good. Yep. But they needed him to be there all season, and he wasn't. He wasn't.
Well, they did get the win this weekend. They beat Dallas 3-2 on a last-minute goal, basically, from Juan Pablo Angel. That's huge for their confidence. However, New York out of the playoffs. I mean, regardless of how you look at it, they're not going to.
Shep said it was like getting a drink of water, but what they need is a pool. They don't have it.
Having said that, they're going to be a factor because the Red Bulls have no pressure on them now. They are out of contention, but the teams they have to play in the remaining games, Red Bull with nothing to lose, everything to gain, they're going to come out and play.
That's true. They're playing for their jobs now, basically for next year, so they could affect the playoffs. Well, the MLS playoff race obviously is heating up as we get down onto the back stretch of the season. Let's take a look at the playoff scenario as it stands right now. The top 2 teams in each conference, just to remind you, automatically go into the playoffs, and then it's 4 wild cards regardless of what conference they're in. So right now in the West, you have Houston and Los Angeles. Those are the top 2 in the West. They're right now set. You have Columbus and Chicago in the East. After that, the top 2 wild cards, Seattle and Chivas USA. After that, right now, you have Toronto and Colorado as the second 2 wildcard teams. They're tied on points also with New England, but because of the tie-breaking scenario, right, Colorado and Toronto would get in. New England is on the outside looking out. What do you think about the race tightening up?
Well, the tiebreakers are head-to-head, and so there's still plenty of games left for these teams to play head-to-head and kind of establish themselves and break up the ties.
Yep, a lot of 6-pointers still coming up, right?
Right. So I actually looked at the rest of the schedule. 12 games left where teams 5 through 11, 2 teams are playing each other. 6-point games. So it's a lot of games with a lot on the line.
Stats guru.
He's a scientist, a mathematician, but if you're one of the head coaches in the locker room, you're not thinking about tiebreakers or all the different combinations. You're saying, we're desperate for points. Yep. So there's a bubble of teams that you alluded to that are really, the playoffs are there if they can take care of business and get some wins.
Well, Los Angeles did very well to secure their spot over the weekend, or actually this whole week. They got 4 points out of 6. Yep. All on the road, which is pretty impressive. And they're getting some good contributions from guys like Jovan Kirovski, even with Eskandarian being hurt, Gordon being hurt, Buttle being hurt as well. So LA seems to have solidified something, and it's a team that I like because they seem to be built to do well in the playoffs too.
Yeah, and what LA solidified is their back line, and LA now playing good defense. They have the difference maker. They don't even have
Sean Franklin in there, which is amazing to me.
Right. They have 2 difference makers in Donovan and Beckham. Beckham can do it on free kicks, can do it on set pieces, right, make that pass, that cutting pass to Donovan. So
if you're good
if you're good in the back, well, that's what I'm saying. If you're good in the back in the playoffs, and you can keep the games are always, well, not always, but usually low scoring games, 1-0, 0-0s, and you have a guy who can change a game like Donovan and Beckham, right, you're built for the playoffs.
Well, Chicago has a guy who can change the game, obviously, CUAUHTEMOCBLANCOM, and he did this past weekend. They're down 2-0 with 20 minutes to go. Blanco goes down for the PK. He puts it away. All of a sudden, they're back into it. They come back with a stoppage time winner in the end, 3-2. Dason Robinson.
Yeah, great move.
This is what they needed.
What are you kidding
This is what
me?
they needed, though, isn't it?
They're short in terms of defenders, though.
That's true.
And for Dason Robinson to get a second yellow card, he's now out. Sagaris is out. Samari looks like he's being sold to France. So great comeback, but bonehead play at the end of the game.
Well, you got to figure that Dennis Hamlet went nuts on Dason Robinson after that. He gets his second yellow for pulling his jersey off.
Let's hope there's no controversy between Dason and Dennis Hamlet at this
No
point.
more physical stuff in the locker room, boys.
I'll tell you this, for Chicago, it's a huge win. They needed to establish that they can win at home. I would have argued that if they lost that game, especially had they lost it 2-0, people might be talking about Hamlet as the guy who's on the chopping block. With Samari now leaving, though, I looked up their record with Samari and Conde both in the lineup. Chicago this season, 6-0-4.
Wow.
Well, that is no more, and their record without them is 4-5-4, so not the same team.
Let's talk about the team that gave away the 2-goal lead, right?
The Rapids.
Colorado.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've talked about it all year long. Win one, lose one. Win one, lose one. So that's a game where they let points slip away, but I still like this Colorado team.
I think those points are going to haunt them in the end, though. I think they needed those points. They had it in the bag, and they let it go.
The way that I look at it for Colorado is it's a learning experience. And the reason that it's a learning experience is because after that game, they're still in the playoffs, all right? So you're not out of the playoffs yet. You still, for the most part, hold your own destiny if they win, if they, you know, as long as New England doesn't go on a run where they win every one of their games.
But
Colorado,
that's the problem right now, right? I mean, New England's looking good. They had a great week. They get a win at Seattle, and then they come home and they shellac Real Salt Lake. Kelly Dubé gets the hat trick.
Shellacking Salt Lake when they're on the road.
Hey,
but when like beating the Red Bulls.
But when you need to get results, you know, everyone talks about New England's always had games in hand, but they needed to get results from those games, and they did this week.
Right, and I'll give New England credit. I mean, they're riding the shoulders of Shalry Joseph. I think he's dominating games. He's doing everything in every part of the field. But can that hold up over the long run? For the rest of the season, New England's playing every week, sometimes twice a week, no breaks. Can Shalry hold up? Can the rookies hold up in the back over that stretch?
I like New England for two reasons, Stevie Nicol and Paul Mariner. If you look at teams in Major League Soccer, if you can get your team, regardless of the players on the field, to go out and fight, compete, stay organized for 90 minutes, you're going to do well. They're doing it.
And New England did fight this week, that's for sure.
They're going to have to get the results soon, I'm saying, because at the end of the season, they're playing Columbus, Chicago, Columbus to finish it at the end of that long streak.
Easy.
So,
easy, yeah. Well, not a great way to end the season, but a great way to end Act 1 on Extra Time. Join us for Act 2 on Wednesday when we will rejoin our journey around CONCACAF for the Champions League.